We are live now, ma'am. Good evening, everyone. It's a delight to have you all here for the episode 9 of the Lady Baazigar series. Once someone remarked, women who did created women who can. This aptly encapsulates the aim of our episode today. Empowering girls with life skills, education, and sisterhood is vital for them to become thriving women. A girl who can complete her education increases her chance of increasing her future income by 10%. Even before pandemic shuttered schools, an estimated 130 million adolescent girls were out of schools already. Ensuring that girls become educated is a multifaceted undertaking. Quite honestly, through this Lady Bazigar series, Project Korea aims at inspiring young girls to be educated and empowered. Now I would request Devika to enlighten us about sarkarischool.in and Project Korea.
Hi. So, talking about Sarkari School is an initiative of the Citizen Foundation, a think tank that provides a platform to highlight the hard work of individuals in the field of school education, uplifting the future of younger generations and those who are not related to government or any organization but are helping the neglected strata of Indian society. These peculiar innovators redefine the field of education with a lot of self determination and hard work, and thus deserve recognition. Sarkari School works on featuring unsung people who are underrated in this society. We give a platform to those people who have worked for the betterment of school education with a holistic point of view. Individuals who genuinely help government schools and underprivileged kids should have a voice and proper appreciation for their dedication and hard work. We at Sarkari School help them eradicate the dichotomy that exists between the private and public sectors of education. Coming to Project Guria, gender inequality has been experienced all over the world for ages. Though it has decreased over time, still many of us face many kinds of discrimination even as we talk. Girls are still being discriminated against in terms of various aspects as compared to their male counterparts. The primary aspect in terms of gender inequality has been experienced in education. Our project aims at increasing the enrollment of girls in elementary and primary education in government schools. We help government institutions to build a safe learning space by spreading awareness and organizing good donation rounds. The project envisions reducing the poor sex ratio in the classroom and help supporting the little girls, Guriyas as we like to call them, to follow their dreams. Handing it back to
Thank you
you.
so much, Devika. Moving ahead, I would like to tell you all about this Lady Bazigar series. So, under this series, we conduct one on one interview sessions with our girl icons who are currently pursuing or have completed their higher education, despite facing social, emotional, or financial hardships throughout their journey. So, it's a platform for those icons to share their story, their passion, goals, dreams, and success mantras with all the young aspiring girls who join us for the episodes. Today, we are delighted to have with us Bharati Kondepudy. Kindly excuse me, ma'am, if I don't pronounce your surname very aptly. She is a gender and development researcher trained in humanities and multidisciplinary social sciences at Miranda House, University of Delhi, and Ambedkar University in development studies. She has two plus she has over 2 years of experience in the development and research sector. Her research interests revolve around gender-based violence, intimate partner violence, and public policy. Apart from academics, she likes to spend her time reading fiction, obsessing over new music, and everything related to the internet. Thank you so much, ma'am, for gracing the event with your presence.
That was very sweet.
Without Without further ado, I'm sure all of us present here today are excited to hear from you. I'm thrilled to moderate this session today, and we would love to hear more about you, your journey, your ups and downs, and your driving force. Firstly, how are you, and how are you looking forward to this episode today?
Thanks for asking. I'm quite well. And how are you guys? I hope things are great on your end as well. And I'm frankly quite curious about this episode because when you sort of reached out to me with this, I was wondering about what the whole situation is. How are you? How? And it was fairly random because I've never really seen myself in this light. So I think I was pretty curious about how. Uh, what kind of conversation we can generate, and how we can possibly like create more knowledge that can maybe motivate people. So yeah, so I was mostly curious. Yeah.
Well, it's a pleasure to have you here. Moving ahead, I would really love to hear about the synopsis of your journey, like from school to being in
Hmm.
Miranda House and then being at such a prestigious institution, London School of Economics and Political Science. So, how was the journey? How did it start? How did you end up being here?
Um, it was mostly accident, mostly a lot of luck, mostly um, sort of finding my way along. In school, so I've always had a passion or like an inclination towards social sciences. And I really enjoyed reading growing up. So I used to read basically anything I could get my hands on, and it was then that I always knew I wanted to do something with social sciences. So, and I was a pretty regular student, like just run of the mill, very basic. So, yeah, I just stumbled upon, like, I really enjoyed history when I was in school. So, I think I did pretty decently. And yeah, then as it happens with like all of us, like board exams come, your results come, and you choose something based on like, okay, this is what I remotely like, because you don't know a lot, right? So, you just randomly just pick something. So, yeah. Going to Miranda House was a game changer because that was a setup which was entirely different from what I've experienced in school, right? So my school was co-ed, which is like it's as regular as it can get. But like at Miranda House, it was just immediately a very empowering environment, because you're surrounded by women of all ages who are exceptional. Every single one of everybody who's there is exceptional in their own right. So I think being in that sort of environment was very crucial for me at that time. I got to explore a lot of things in the 3 years of college. I was mostly outside of class instead of inside, which in hindsight I am really grateful for because I got to explore a lot of things. So I remember the first year I just did like just random society stuff. I was in the music society. I was part of the student union in my second year. I was active in the history union, and I also did like side courses and stuff like that because again it was a sort of environment that allowed you to explore different interests. So I think that's where I sort of it was a random sociology class where I first heard about development and development policy, and yeah, and I just just decided to pursue that interest. I took a short term course around development and realized, okay, hey, this is something that I enjoy. It's the intersection of social sciences, contemporary issues, and a place where you can hope that you can generate good knowledge and research that can have tangible impact, or you hope so at least. So yeah, then I sort of decided that I wanted to do development studies. I got into Ambedkar, which was a big stepping point again in terms of my research journey, and my and in my pivot towards gender research in particular. So yeah, that's where I started getting more and more interested in questions around women's agency. What do we mean by sustainability? How can we practice sustainability? And yeah, then we had 2 years of the pandemic where a lot of reckoning happened. So I was fortunate enough to get a job at the Institute for Human Development, where I worked on a project that was directly related to intimate partner violence and evaluating a policy that was meant to solve or solve intimate partner violence in Bihar. So yeah, and that's where I really developed my niche and my interest towards the intersections of gender and policy and how knowledge needs to be developed, at least in India, a lot more on this sort of intersection. And yeah, and I think last year I decided that I want to sort of study more. I had the itch again to go back to university, and I decided to apply to a bunch of places. And yeah, and that's how sort of LSE happened. And yeah, I'll be going there now. So that's pretty much, I think, yeah, that's a brief synopsis of what I've been doing or how things sort of evolved.
So, you would be going this September?
Yes, yes, I am leaving this September, maybe in another month. Yeah.
Okay, and that's a research or a PhD degree, kind of.
So it's a research degree. It's a MSc in gender research. So my degree is focused on a lot on gender theory and as well as the more methodology aspects of things. So my concentration would be on uh, using qualitative methodologies, survey methodologies, and generally the more technical stuff when it comes to impact evaluation, when it comes to designing research, designing surveys, and how those can be more, at least my aim, or at least my how what I want to do with this degree is to like understand how gender can be the central point in research designs and how I, as a researcher, can improve myself and my outlook towards um, numerous policies that we have on gender, women empowerment, stuff like that. How can we be more critical, be more inclusive, diverse, be more open to newer methods of research, so that we can center people's voices, the people who matter the most, um, so yeah, without causing any sort of harm, ethical dilemmas, stuff like that. All of these are big questions. I don't have answers to them. That's why I'm going back to university. But yeah, these are the things that I want to look at. So hence I applied again.
I hope all your aims are fulfilled. We wish you luck
With
for that.
thanks. Yeah.
So, you mentioned that you have worked with Institute of Human Development after you did your masters.
Yeah.
So, how
2020. Yes.
yeah, how has that changed your outlook towards the violence against women? Because the things we study in theory and what we research, and when we dig in more about it and we see on the ground realities, sometimes they are vastly different. So, how has the
Right.
experience been with you?
If anything, it has just made it so it was a very theoretical thing for me because it's the level of trauma that I heard from other people is not something I've experienced myself. Um, so it was mainly in the realm of like, to put it very like plainly, like हाँ ये होता है, हाँ ये statistics हैं. So those statistics sort of came alive to me when we spoke to women and just how commonplace intimate partner violence is, and just how like it's many would consider, oh, it's a taboo, people don't like talk about like घर में क्या हो जो घर में होता है वो घर नहीं होता है, but it's not the truth. It people we spoke to more than 600 respondents, and like it was an overwhelming response that it's a very prevalent situation. So like for example, 1 in 3 women in India even now experience spousal violence. So I'm not sure if I should be quoted on that, but I think NFHS 5 में यही है, it's 1 in 3. So yeah, so I think it just really zeroed in on the fact that this is a very real problem that we don't address yet, and it needs to be like at the center point of issues. If we want to talk about gender equality, we have to talk about violence inside the home and how it sort of impacts the lives of many women.
Yeah, I agree. Even we talk about development. So
Mm-hmm.
Haryana is being one of the developed states, higher
Right.
GDP numbers, and we have women who are economically empowered, education like after Beti Bachao, Beti Padhao. But still, the data shows that 32% of the women face domestic violence, and like it's the highest among all the states in India, like one of the highest.
Mm-hmm.
And those numbers are rarely, aren't looked upon. They're just like chodo, see the women are doing good at sports and all.
Yeah.
And then we see that how the development is not linked to how society views women.
Hmm.
There's a gap between that. And
Right.
there I feel that comes the policy intervention part, like you would be researching upon public policy and all.
Right. I think I can speak of it in terms of like what we were doing with our project. For example, like our project was based in Bihar. We are looking at the alcohol ban policy over there and how the alcohol ban policy was formulated with the idea that alcohol is the main trigger for violence, and it's mainly in poor households, and they are the ones who are drinking and beating up their wives, which is again, it's a very biased way of looking at it. It's a very biased way of looking at alcohol consumption. It's a very problematic way of looking at alcohol consumption and also regulation, because historically prohibitions have never worked. So this is where, like, you can see how a policy was designed in a way to, like, it was designed in a manner that it thought it was targeting, intimate partner violence. But if we look at the figures, while drinking went down significantly, violence in Bihar still remains pretty much the same. It's still like from 43, 44, like it went down to 40% in the last 5 years since the prohibition. So not a lot has happened. So the thing is, it was a very sort of general policies in my, like, very, like, if I were to speak plainly, they didn't think too much. I feel like intimate partner violence is a very complex issue, like, because it involves people's personal lives, personal relationships, stuff like that. So when it comes to policy, it's very difficult to, like, solve it as a problem. I think instead, like, if I were to think of it, like, I would probably focus policies on, like, improving help seeking mechanisms, improving hospitals, having greater sensitization, like, uh, at least a lot of times what happens is women are scared to report also. Why is that the case? Because when they go to the police, it's difficult. Like, nobody is likely to believe. Every burden of evidence is difficult to get. So at every step of the way, law enforcement, legal, medical, it's a very difficult, it's a very traumatic process with little to no support. So maybe if we were to look at it from a policy front, like, those are the things that we could look for. Make it easier for women to report, make it supportive. Like, those are the things that should be looked upon, instead of like a big, like, populist move that this was the alcohol ban in this case. So there was no sort of foresight on, how will the state machinery, provide support to those who are actually reporting DV or ITV, stuff like that. So that is where I think, if we were to look at the development perspective, it should focus on that, like strengthening capacity, strengthening the ability for people to, different arms, different organizations should be given more support. So yeah.
Well, if we look at your profile, so you did your
Right.
undergraduation in history, and
Yeah.
then you switched to development studies. So it's
Yeah.
quite so different. Like you totally changed your stream basically. Like you talk about public policy
Yeah.
is part of political science. Well,
Yeah, I mean, yeah, like at this point, like, it's just a khichdi of, like, social sciences in my head. But yes, if I were to, like, if you are asking me, like, why from history to development studies, to be honest, like, when I first joined history, like, it was something of a passion subject. Like, I just enjoy history, but I think, um, because, like, I think that the CBCS module that we have, like, the course structure, it allows you to take different subjects. So I took up economics and sociology, and that's where I got into this whole development discourse, gender, as a more contemporary sociological lens. And I just found that so much more fascinating. Like, it's a, like, as much as I enjoyed history, that was something I liked so much more. And I figured, sort of found that path in my second year, because, yeah, um, I couldn't see myself as an academic in history. That was also something that, it was a bit of an existential crisis, as well. Like, as you, like, sort of finish second year, enter third year, and you're wondering about what to do with life, right? So this was my solution to said existential crisis, that I don't want to study history anymore. I cannot see myself as an academic in history, which is not to, like, diss the discipline. It's just something that I figured that it's like I don't see myself doing. So although, like, studying history gave me, like, a very very strong background in just approaching a problem in general. So because our study was so rigorous, We weren't intimate. Like I knew that there's a way system of like looking at a problem, looking at an event, and we cover vast. We basically covered all of time, to put it very plainly. So उसमें यही था कि I learned how to write well. I learned how to write, and maybe chronology is a way I can approach a problem, approach a question, approach essays, approach different projects, dealing with sources, figuring out sources of information. How do I sort these sources of information? So that was very good. Also, dealing with readings, I'm not intimidated by fat books. Like, ask any history student, nobody is like really intimidated. It's just part and parcel of life. So sort of reading became more and more of a passion for me then. So that's how it happened really. Like I mentioned, like college was a place where I was lucky enough to get some exposure to all different subjects, and dev studies just happened like out of the blue. Second year, there was a course that the sociology and economics department sort of design. It was a 6 months course on rhetorics of development, where they got different activists, experts, and practitioners from the field of development to come give talks. And we had some readings to do, and that is a project to design and all of that stuff. And that's where I really found my niche. I felt like, yes, this is what I want to do. So yeah, that was
Well,
like
it's
it.
really commendable that you have found your niche. Me and
Yeah.
Devika are in our third years, and we
uh,
are still like, did we choose the right course? Okay, what are
वो
we
होता
doing
है.
now?
I mean, वो होता है like history के साथ भी I was like, I don't know what I'm doing here. Like,
Yeah,
but which is why like I spent a lot of time outside of class. Like,
yeah.
so like I was just doing all kinds of things. Like the first 2 years was just spent experimenting pretty much. So yeah.
So I viewed your profile that you have been part of plethora of activities throughout your college, like Western Music Society. It's so diverse, and like then being part of History Union and Heritage Walks. You have
Yeah.
mentioned that.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
So how did extracurriculars help you grow as a person?
Um, it just made me a lot more confident. So in school, I was a pretty quiet sort of person. So it was kind of like a very cliched goal कि like college में करना है, कुछ तो करना है type. So yeah, that's where the music society just happened out of interest. Like I enjoy music, so they were holding auditions, and I just decided to go and audition. I was like, why not? And yeah, just got through. I made some really good friends there. We used spent hours practicing in front of the canteen, going to fests, enjoying that fest culture, enjoying society culture as well. We become quite close knit, especially if you're spending so much time of the day together, going to different colleges. Uh, and it was a great way to meet people, honestly. I made some of my best friends in my society, people I'm still in touch with, across departments. You get to meet people from across departments, across years. So, and it was a more or less a non-hierarchical structure, very like safe environment. So you could speak to anyone about anything. It was really sweet. It was a good place. So yeah, first year was just like society culture is pretty hardcore. So you're just you have to be dedicated to society. So first year was pretty much doing that and like managing academics on the side. Second year I decided like let's just like go for class rep, why not? So, and yeah, elections happened, I got class rep. And if so then you're part of like the student union, the main student union, as well as a department union. You're sort of like you're part of all the groups that's managing. You assist in like managing events, organizing events, and stuff like that. And yeah, at that time it was one of my friends, my course mates, she and our senior, they sort of conceptualized the Heritage Walk Society, because at that point, these heritage walks were just sort of picking up. Like this is what 2016, 17. A lot of these things were happening. So we also thought that as history students, it was sort of a quest to make history more interactive, because it's a people are sometimes intimidated by the bookish nature of this discipline. So we wanted to take whatever we sort of learned in our classes and take the interesting stories, the stories that people like to listen. and take them out and like hopefully like also make us interested and sort of like look at readings in a different manner, give it a more practical outlook, like help us visualize what we are studying and also like sort of bring people together. So we would just charge a nominal fee or even nothing. We started off with just like fee, like कॉलेज स्टूडेंट्स लाइक आ जाओ अपने दोस्तों को लेके आओ. वो अलग बात है कि सुबह सुबह होता था तो लाइक crowd used to initially be very thin. Nobody would turn up, but like we would just drag our friends, like you need to come along. And so yeah, we took walks to pretty much like every place: Qutub Minar, Mehrauli Archaeological Park, Humayun's Tomb, Red Fort. Yeah, pretty much like any historic place of historical value. We have gone and like we would organize these walks and just like I was just a photographer. I would just like click pictures, help my friend with like manage the sort of like the take the ticket money or that kind of stuff. And I would also like thoda sa social media, that kind of stuff. So that was second year. In I was also doing the short term course at that point. So yeah, where we were in touch with George Washington University. So it was a course between Miranda House, George Washington University, and sort of the I think their politics department and our economics and social department. So we also like met students over there and virtually, of course. And same again in these courses, it was again a diverse environment, like people coming from all years and all courses. So I think my aim for all of this was just to meet like people, like meet all kinds of people, which was like great. I think it's been a great like way to network, great way to make friends, and also just like try everything out. um, so yeah, and then I think third year there was some exchange program, yeah, with Utrecht Business School. So Dutch students came to India. We did a whole sort of like a few courses around management and a few projects, and we took them around the city. And I'm still friends with a few of them, and we keep in touch. So it was nice, yeah. So yeah, like I mentioned, I was barely in class. And my life lived on. I lived off of ECAs. Oh yeah,
Well, you were lucky in the sense that
no
pandemic didn't
COVID.
struck in 2016 and
Yeah.
17,
Oh
so
yeah,
your
the
college was
bond.
entirely offline.
Yeah,
You
it was
actually
like.
enjoyed that DU life.
Oh yeah, pretty much the before times, as I call it. It
Yeah,
was it was peak DU life, pretty much.
right.
Yeah,
I agree.
yeah.
Though it's quite you were quite a multitasker, yeah, juggling between so many things, from history department union to student union to being CR and all those things. That's really
Not
impressive.
advisable. Not advisable at not mental sanity nahi rehta.
Yeah, I agree. We
Yeah,
try to do, we like
yeah,
I want to explore all of these things, and my third
yeah.
year is going to end like I want to do this and that. But yeah, sometimes some things, and mostly I don't
It's
know why academics are always backseated.
Oh yeah, yeah. So was mine. Like it was always, but I think I am really grateful for like all the extra stuff I did because it kind of guided me towards what I actually wanted to do. So, and like in weird ways, all of these skills have sort of helped me out in different sort of areas. Like even 5 years from now, like it's really like they've somehow propped up somewhere or the other, and they really helped out. Yeah.
That's good to know. Though
Yeah.
we would love to know that. Did you face any challenges? Like, what has been biggest challenge till date?
Ah. Well, to be honest, I come from a fairly like privileged background wherein like my parents have always supported like not entirely as long as like you were fine with your academics, like do whatever you want. I think a lot of the barrier has to come with like the imposter syndrome that comes with like academics, like knowing that am I good enough to be in this place. That's always been something that I have struggled with personally. And in terms of challenges, it was again like sort of trying to find. I've always been very conscious about finding, like, am I at the right place? So that was a challenge. Like, again, these are very superficial challenges, in my opinion. That trying to fit in, trying to find something that I am happy with, and something a biggest a goal of mine has always been to have a career where I can give back, where my work matters. So that for me was a big challenge, to figure out how to facilitate that. So yeah, I feel like I was lucky at a lot of places, like getting through to Miranda, getting through to Ambedkar, finding the work I wanted to do. These were all like sort of things that happened in a weird way, and those were that really boosted life. A big challenge was again like figuring out life during lockdown, because I graduated from university, my postgrad in lockdown. So that was a mental challenge to sort of wrap your head around, because the world had changed completely, and yeah, everything that I'd planned, sort of like, ye bhi karenge, wo bhi karenge, was nothing happened, and you just had to sit down at home and like just do nothing. So like finding my like regaining my foothold in the world again after that sort of lockdown, and like what do you do after that? That was a difficult time, I think, because I was really rattled, because you always think like masters ke baad, oh, you will start working, but that didn't happen immediately, and that was I think that's where I sort of figured like, all right, what do you like? A lot. I also struggle with patience. Like I like to do things very quickly, and everything has to happen on time. So it was a challenge to trust that things will sort of eventually fall into place. So yeah, otherwise yeah, I don't think, like, I've been very lucky in life otherwise, to have very supportive friends, to have been able to make good friends, to be in an environment that fosters good relationships. So
That's really nice. And if I figure out, then you're quite a spontaneous person as well, I feel.
yeah, I look at, I just said yes to this right randomly. I just, that's also a thing. Like I just like, okay, we'll see what happens. Types, like you never know how things go, right? So yeah,
Well, it's a
uh,
quite lively attitude you have. We should learn this
thanks.
from you. Yeah.
Yeah,
So who do
don't
you
let the
look?
world crush you.
Yeah. Who do you look forward to, or like when you're feeling down? Do you idealize anyone?
Do I idealize anyone? I mean, it was going to be very cheesy. I really love Taylor Swift. So like I sort of like, I really enjoy like just like a lot of shit is thrown her way. Oh, I'm sorry, a lot of like sort of like media sort of stuff goes her way, and I sort of yeah. So I kind of see the disposition that a lot she has, and that is quite nice. Other than that, I think I've been lucky in like mentors, like academic mentors, and like knowing about their journey. For example, my professor in Ambedkar, she like had an academic trajectory that I really like aspire to have myself. So so she's been a good support. Like I do talk, I've kept in touch with her. So sort of talking to her and like understanding that a lot of things take time. So I've learned not to have an ideal because that never really works. We are all like individuals ourselves, but like I like to take things from different people and like see what's sort of worked for them, because it will not entirely work for me. Taylor Swift's life is not my life at all. So वो नहीं चलने वाला है. But like I can take principles, for example, don't stress too much about things, or like from my professor's life, I can take that you need to give time and patience to your interests for things to actually come to fruition. Um, yeah, and I take a lot of inspiration from my friends as well. Some of my friends are doing incredibly well, and I'm really happy for them. And I really like to see how they are doing. And I think keeping in touch with people who support me and whom I support, I think is a really nice. way of like keeping yourself motivated. A lot of times it's always nice to have a good sounding board. So
Yeah, well, it's right that you can take good things from everyone.
yeah,
That
yeah.
can't idealize anyone, and especially we idolize people who we don't know personally.
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. Parasocial relationships are
Yeah,
just how the
right.
world is these days. So yes,
Yeah.
that is true.
So, like you applied through LSE, I'm sure that many of us aspire, like it's a dream college for many. So, how has
Yeah.
your experience been with writing SOPs, applying for scholarships, and then finally getting to it? How was your parents' reaction to it? And
Uh,
like, did you aspire to be there, or you had some other college in your mind?
Honestly, so my entire application process began last year, maybe around March. Like that's when I started listing down places I want to go to, and really starting to put thought about like, okay, I want to study. What do I want to study? So like I had three things in mind. The criteria was it has to be a gender course, it has to have methodology at its core, and it has to be like the course content and the faculty needs to be like diverse, like the kind of people. So that narrowed down my list pretty close. So I applied to three places, and I decided to apply to three places. So Cambridge, the LSE, and IDS, that is Institute for Development Studies, Sussex. Yeah. So yeah, started writing. So also like all the scholarships, I was. It was a maddening process, but it was also quite humbling because you're really forced to think about what you want to do, what you can offer to the college or the scholarship, and how they can help you. So these are the three things you should really think about when you're writing your essay. So yeah, also I was lucky enough that I had again the support of my friends, a lot of people who have done this process before. So I wrote down my essay, sat down, discussed with a billion people, shared, like made innumerable like rough drafts of my SOPs. And so yeah, I had a master SOP, for example, and then that was sort of, once I had the major chunk of my ideas down, how I wanted oriented and what I was sort of looking for, like what I wanted from the university, what the university would want from me, stuff like that, and my very loose idea of a future. So yeah, that's then I sort of I wasn't successful with my Cambridge application, which I sort of also realized it won't happen because I wasn't too happy with the research proposal that I'd sent off. So and then was IDS and LSE. LSE was a bit unexpected. Like I sort of thought, like I was hoping I had covered all my bases. I think I was pretty confident about that. That I have written my SOP in such a manner that it answers their questions. It's when you're doing the whole SOP writing, this thing. When you're in that phase, the biggest advice anybody would give you online is that make sure you concisely answer the question. They give you just 500 words. In those 500 words, you have to talk about your life and why you want to do this course and how that course will help you. So make sure you answer that question. Make sure you give it to a variety of people, even like strangers online. So that's what I found really helpful. People online, like just giving out so much information about how to do this application cycle. It is a fair amount of privilege when you're applying to these places, so that's something you have to be cognizant about at all times. And knowing who to ask for help, how to ask for help, who will give you help, these are all like things that are determined by so many factors. So yeah, I applied. I got to know about these places, and I did this application while I was at field work. So to again, it was like I was juggling two very different, my work life and my sort of academic life at the same time. Yeah, so I got to know about LSE and IDS around March. So that was again, I was in the middle of field work. I was in Bihar. I was in Darbhanga in a state called so yeah, I was just like, what the heck is happening? I just came back from field work, like just talking to people for 10 hours a day, and then I come back and I check my email. So it was a bit of a disbelief moment, like Sussex, I was really, really happy because that was one of the places I genuinely wanted to go to. And LSE, I was just in shock. Like, how is this happening? Like, I don't know. Like, this is not me. Yeah, it was a big decision between choosing between the two. Yeah, LSE just won out over Sussex like barely. Yeah, because both institutions are equally great in what do you call this field of study. And as for scholarships, you just have to apply to as many as possible. And Also, like I think scholarships, my scholarship cycle was interesting because I think I learned a lot about like how to sort of write these applications, and I think I was not entirely successful, although I'm really grateful for Lady Meherbai for Tata Trust for giving me a gift scholarship. But I think overall for the big ones, Chevening, Commonwealth, Rhodes, if you're applying for Oxford, that is, or even the in-house master's scholarships, you have to like orient it differently, and plus like it has to be like I think they genuinely do look for candidates who need these scholarships, and that is a big factor as well. Like obviously, so वही है उसमें again you have to orient yourself very differently, and you just try. Like it's again like I think in this entire process I've just learned to like मुझे फ़र्क नहीं पड़ता, मैं बस ट्राई कर रही हूँ, बाकी मिलेगा नहीं मिलेगा मुझे नहीं पता. Like knowing that I put my best was I think what really helped me get through the entire process, and being very selective in the first place कि मुझे where do I want to go, what do I want to do. That saved me a lot of sort of like I didn't apply to 10 different places. That just you will die doing that. So it's because writing all those essays will just like it takes a lot on you. So that's it. Like that's how the application cycle was. And figuring out again online sources. LinkedIn is a big source. um, Sort of talking to people who have gone to the courses you've gone to, have the scholarships you applied to. ये सब बहुत important है. इसी समय people do a lot of workshops. So I'd say keep your eyes on like social media. Social media is a great resource if you can like harness it the right way. I find that the internet you can find anything you want to. Yeah, that is something. Reddit was a big place. Grad school thread, grad admissions. These threads are great places for understanding how this process works. It's because it's inherently different from how we do it in India. So उसको समझने में time लगाना ज़रूरी है. And give yourself like time. Like even if you like I did this entire application process in say 6 months. Like it took me 6 months to sit, conceptualize, ask for references, get my documents in order, have a passport. All of these things like साइड का बहुत कुछ होता है तो फिर ये सब ऑर्गेनाइज करने में टाइम लगता है सो आई फील लाइक यू शुड गिव योरसेल्फ दैट स्पेस टू डू थिंग्स.
Thank you so much for the insights, ma'am. So, we would love to know that, as you must be knowing, and we have mentioned before, that Project Korea works towards girls' education, basically increasing
Right.
enrollment of girls into schools. So, we would love to know your views that what, according to you, could create a more enabling environment in society so that more girls could be enrolled in schools and we have a 100% enrollment ratio for them.
Well, I'm not entirely well versed when it comes to education policy per se, but like at the top of my head, like for example, these are great questions to ask from someone who's working at Pratham or Center. These are like they are the ones who are actually there, right? But I would think ensuring, for
But
example,
on a
public.
personal level,
Yeah,
like
yeah, yeah. Of course, yeah, yeah. Like having, making schools a welcoming place for girls. One, uh, what do you call? Not treating them as the second priority in classrooms. Having good washrooms for girls. I think counseling parents that you need to teach your children because a lot like. Yeah, again, counseling parents is a good, and also what else would I think would bring making it fun, like again, if you make schools a safe and fun space to come, like why wouldn't anyone want to come to school? And also, like even among students, having uh, gender sensitivity programs from a young age, so that they're not dropout nahi hota hai. So the school needs to act as a community sort of enterprise organization and engage with the students, with the teachers, and the what do you call parents to ensure that बच्चे आए और पढ़ाई करे. Or also like pay teachers well. They're doing such a big job. You need to pay teachers well. They need the dignity of the job that they're doing. Have well trained teachers. Make sure that they are always updated on the curriculum. um, हमारे स्कूल्स में अभी भी मिड डे मील्स बहुत बड़ा प्रॉब्लम है. मिड डे मील्स को caste discrimination is huge. Look at what happened in Rajasthan. So if we can't like there are a lot of like systemic injustices that still exist even in schools because it's part of society, right? So it's all very interwoven, and it's a very complex answer, like the more I think about it. But yeah, I think there just has to be greater like sort of sensitization at all levels, and funding. Paisa nahi hai schools mein. So that's something that we can also look at. That will hopefully increase enrollment for girls, and help retain that enrollment as well. So yeah.
Yeah, we
Oh,
agree.
also one more point. Sorry, it was also like mentorship. Make sure that girls have mentorship as well, and like uh, because होता है कि पढ़ाई के बाद क्या करेंगे, शादी हो जाएगी. Like make sure that they know of options as well, like different options that anyone can do after getting an education. So yeah.
Yeah, I agree, and that is why we came up with this series. Ki at least
Right.
because we invite guests who have recently educated or who are currently pursuing their degree, so they share very current insights. Ki what's going on, like how did they
Right.
do this, and that's why we asked about like how did you proceed with this, and like they can get an idea. They can get a hang of various things because we have people from diverse areas. We have Teach for
Right.
India fellows here. We invite from other backgrounds who are like in mostly we have network from BU colleges only, but yeah, we try to expand our network as
So
well soon.
I have a question then. So how do you disseminate these videos and all? And for example, language is a big barrier. Most of this conversation was in English. So how do you really take this, and like uh, how young are the children who are listening to this? Are they in call, like for example, class 10, 11, 12? Are they younger? How do you sort of go about this?
Well, we stream this on YouTube.
Mm-hmm.
So basically, now it's only three of us in the meet, but we stream this on YouTube and we share snippets on our Instagram account. So
Right.
I hope that this reaches a various diverse kinds of audience, but yeah, mostly like high school girls or senior secondary girls.
Okay. Got it.
And yeah, and we are based out of Delhi, so we have mostly CBSE in the government schools as well.
Mm-hmm.
So I feel that language here comes no barrier, but depends. If a guest prefers in Hindi, we can go in Hindi as well.
Right. Got
Yeah,
it.
therefore, yeah. Thank you so much for
No
sparing
worries.
time with us today. And it was awe-inspiring to hear from you. And I just loved your LinkedIn profile. It's like have done so much. Like we're trying hard that we want essay, we want the
Yeah.
profile.
No, but
You know,
honestly, like COVID has taken a big hit for college students. So I just feel kind of sad. For example, even my brother is in college. He's a third year student, Avi. So he's just started going to college. So I feel like, wow, third years or first year सब एक जैसे है. So like मुझे वो बहुत funny लगा, but it's also very sad. Yeah.
and I agree. We feel like our colleges just reopened back in Feb. So I feel like
Right.
कि अभी तो college शुरू हुआ and like I'm in third year and like it's not
Yeah,
even
yeah.
less than a year I would be passing out from college.
Yeah, yeah. But hey, I suppose you just take it in stride. So that's what everyone like. I hope that is the sort of attitude one can have. Although it's very difficult to do that. Maybe if I were in college during COVID time, I wouldn't have been able to. It's quite disappointing though. Yeah, like that's there. Yeah.
Maitri, I would like to just ask one thing. Sorry,
Yeah.
I will just backtrack the discussion a bit, and I know we're
Mm-hmm.
sort of at the end, and I should have asked this before. But so
Yeah.
you've done a lot of field work, and I think this is just a very apt question then to ask. So you've dealt with domestic violence per se as a very
Yeah. Can you just give me
essential topic.
one moment? Can you just
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
at my door? Yeah.
Fine.
Yeah.
So yeah, so you've dealt with domestic violence in a very practical sense. You said that you talked to people in a lot of ways.
Mm-hmm.
So that really just got to me thinking. Do you really think that? So, for example, there are a lot of pictures recently, and even a lot of pictures that used to come. So, do you really think that media or social media, for example, has a role for that sort of demographic, for that sort of people? And do you really think that it creates an impact? Uh, all of all of the pictures and movies we are having, social media, for instance.
Representation is like generally always good, that at least you, in a way, you can relate to, okay, like, someone is telling my story, that kind of a thing. But it has to be dealt with very, like, carefully, is my opinion. You have to be very careful in how you look at it and how you depict violence. And, like, because everybody has all kinds of opinions, you never know how things will land. But yeah, it may not help in the sense that, ki kam ho jayega, like, but I feel like people like their stories to be told. You like, we seek a sort of comfort in, like, okay, someone else also has been through that, maybe this is what she did. Knowing that you're not alone in that, I think that's how social media or, like, representation on screen, I think you're probably referring to Darlings that just came out, for example. So, yeah, it's a, because Darling, again, the story is pretty, like, what happened to her is like what I heard on fieldwork a lot of times. It's because there's a sense of resignation, like, you just resign to your fate a lot of times. Feel like, हाँ ये मेरे साथ हो रहा है, मैं कुछ कर नहीं सकती हूँ. Our family structures are designed in such a way that a woman is made to stay with the man until unless the violence is extreme to the point where she has to leave him. We are conditioned to accept toxicity in every form. So, yeah, I find that media representation can be, if used correctly, if the person creating that form of art is cognizant and is very careful about how they depict it. They do their work, they do their homework, they make sure that they're not, that it's not increasing the problem per se. Like, and plus, you cannot control how an audience will consume it. That is just the nature of things, at least in my opinion. So, I find that, like, mostly, at least, we are talking about these things. If it's creating talk, so representation can help for sure, that, without a doubt.
Yes, I think for sure. I mean, makes
Mhm.
sense.
So, due to paucity of time, I will have to wrap it up. We already
Oh,
took a
sure.
lot of your time.
No worries. This was quite interesting. Yeah. Yeah.
So, as we come to the end of this lovely evening, before winding up, it's an absolute delight to deliver the vote of thanks on behalf of the organizing committee to you who spared us time. We are truly obliged, and it was really inspiring and it was really insightful. We haven't really known a person who has worked, on field work basically, like from Delhi to Bihar. It's like nobody
Mm-hmm.
goes there on ground level. Mostly they are like enrolled in secondary research, and it was really insightful.
Mm.
Further, I would like to thank each and every one from the team, including Abhishek Ranjan sir, team leads, and fellow volunteers for organizing the event. Thank you and have a great day ahead. Thank you so
You
much, ma'am.
too. All right. Yeah. Bye bye.
Thank you, ma'am. It was a pleasure
Yeah.
hearing.
Yeah.